Hello, my friends. It's been a while. Um, yeah, how are you? I'm always so taken aback when it says that I'm going live. It's like, oh, here we go. Um, I hope today finds you well. We're smack dab in the middle of the holiday season, and I hope uh, I hope things are going well and that you're not too harried, as it were. Um, as always, let me know that you're here. It's always nice to know to whom I am speaking. And that goes if you're coming to this on the replay, please let me know that you were here. I'd love to know that. So um, let's see. Um, I am feeling slightly awkward because I have on red lipstick and I never wear red lipstick. So I hope it's not too distracting. And if you have any comments about it, yay or nay, let me know. Um, so this is the last um, Facebook Live for 2023. I wasn't really anticipating that, but since we go every 2 weeks, the um, the next time would really put us in between the Christmas holiday and New Year's, and so I just thought, oh, this should just be it. So, hey Genevieve, hey Dan, thank you, Genevieve. I appreciate that. I'm trying to I'm trying to up my fashion game. You stay in your booth long enough, and the sweatpants and a t-shirt don't cut it anymore. I'm just feeling like, oh, it's time, to up my game a little. Not that I'm doing anything or going anywhere. I'm not. But I just do it for myself. How's that? That's why I'll do that for my own self-esteem, if you will. Um, so, uh, so end of year stuff is always hard. There's nothing magical about the turn of the clock from 12:31 to 01:01. We give it magic, um, and I don't say that to kind of um, poo poo on the whole, idea of making goals and plans for the new year. I think it's a good thing, and I am going to do it. And I think it is an interesting marker. We mark our lives and we mark them by the passing of years. And so I think to reflect on where we've been is probably the most important thing that we can do in looking ahead. Because I think sometimes we get to the end of the year and we go, oh, I didn't do that, or I don't feel any different, or nothing's changed. Everything's going as it always has. And I will say to you that by and large, that just simply isn't true. We just don't take note of the changes as they're happening, and they tend to pass us by, and and so we don't get to incorporate the goodness of things happening to us, right? Because we're not paying attention, right? And so I think to look back is always a really great thing to do. Um, so you have a pair of dress sweats, do you, Dan? I actually do. I have nicer sweats and I have, less nice sweats. So I, I'm I'm committing that I will wear my better sweats to the store when I go pick up, lettuce. Um, but yeah, I do. Hi, Susan. Nice to see you. I'm glad that you're here. Um, so I can't obviously discuss your life. You're the only one who's living it, right? So I can only share with you mine, and so I'm gonna, and I hope that it just inspires you to think about your own, right, and to you know reflect on the things that have transpired in your life, good or bad, easy or difficult, or somewhere in between. So, as always, it feels a little awkward to talk about myself, but there you go. Mine's the only life that I can reasonably discuss, with any clarity. So I want to say that this has been a really difficult year. Um, the first and and it all, it all kind of goes together, right? Work life, personal life, we're all wound up. Those paths always intersect, and each of those things matters to the other, it plays a part, so the first and second quarter of the year were difficult. And my stepmother died in March. My father died 6 weeks later, on April 1st. And, um, and then the subsequent couple of months were all about planning for memorial services and things like that. Um, and my dad and my stepmom lived in Alaska. It's from, a long ways away from Tennessee, right? So there was a lot of traveling. It's like going to Europe, It's like you fly, it's 4.5 hours to Seattle, and then it's another 3.5 to 4 hours from Seattle to Anchorage. So it's a long way to go, and it's taxing. So so all of the things inherent in that, losing your parents, and my mom died in 2012. And so it's like now my parents are gone, and so that brings with it a lot of contemplation and the meaning of life and all those things. And my, my siblings and I are, it sounds morbid, but it's like you get to this place in your life where you go, oh, I'm next, And so you start to think about your life and its value and its meaning and what you want to do and what matters to you and all those things. And so during that period, first and second quarter, I didn't audition much. I didn't take my gear when I was traveling. I didn't want to. I didn't want to audition. Auditioning seemed so ridiculous to me, um, during that period of time, right? And I knew that there would be consequences to that, and of course there were. Um, it's a very slow year, very slow with work. I mean, if you don't audition, you don't work. That's, you might have your ongoing clients, but there's no new work, and that matters. New work becomes old work if you're lucky enough. So there was all of that, and then a long-term relationship that I had um, finally dissolved, right? And then a couple months later came back in a completely new and different way, and that was really both disconcerting and lovely, and took a lot of my, emotional energy and focus, right? And so it's like been rough, in a certain sense, and in another sense, it's been an extraordinary blessing. I will say this about, I think I've said it before about my father's death. My dad lived to 95, and he was never sick. And 72 hours before he died, he was having an enchilada with rice and beans, brought to him by one of his best friends. Um, uh, and they were just enjoying it immensely. And I have a picture of him, eating with gusto and completely lucid, right? And and then 48 hours before he died, he was sitting up in bed reading the Anchorage Times. Like he was lucid, and healthy except for old age, right? Um, he never had cancer, he never had diabetes, he was never sick, you know? And then 24 hours after reading the Anchorage Times in bed, he fell into a coma, and 24 hours later, he was gone. And I got to talk to him. I got to tell him I loved him. I got like all those things, right? And so when he died, it was like he just was ready to go. He just was like, yeah, I'm good and I'm out. And so there was nothing tragic about his death, nothing. And so I contemplate that too, right? Like, um, what a good life and what a good death. Like, we could all only hope for such a thing. So anyway, I mean to go on about all of this. It's just this is the kind of year that it's been, right? And and it was really important, you know, to me to choose not to bring my gear, to choose not to work, right? Even though I knew that it would have financial ramifications. and all of that. And yeah, it's been a slow year. Been a slow year. And now it's picking up a little bit. And and I want to tell you a story that happened to me this week that is part and parcel of a lot of the things that I talk about here, um, and how our careers are just, you never arrive, right? We're just at the business of it. We're auditioning and we're seeking, and we're working to get better, and we're working to stay in the game, and all those things. So I went to Seattle. I went to Seattle for Thanksgiving, and I got to spend a lot of time with my friend Danny States. And I know a lot of you, well, I think at least some of you know who she is. Um, she has a fantastic software program called Voiceover View to help you track your voiceover career, which I highly recommend if you haven't seen or heard of it. It's very reasonably priced. She's fantastic. All that anyway. I got to spend some time with her, and while I was in Seattle, I got an audition for a video game. And I was like, oh, this fits me. I should probably read it. And so I went to Danny's and she helped me record it. I was totally unfamiliar with her software and her booth and how she does things. And, we all do things so differently, right? So she helped me with it. Anyway, I ended up booking the thing, right? And it was like really interesting role. And so I, in the booking thing, it was like, okay, I just want to make sure that they know that I'm remote, like, because they said it'll record in studio. And I was like, okay, well, I'm remote. So I just need to confirm that. So they confirmed, yes, it's remote. It's all good. So we ended up, and the session scheduled for tomorrow. And so they scheduled last Friday a studio test via IPDTL, and that was all good. And then I got sent this package of documents, and things for the game, and it included stills and it included little videos and sort of what the scenery is going to be like in the game, and all of that. And it had my lines in an Excel spreadsheet, and then it had the full script. And it was like, oh wow, that was a lot of stuff. I customarily just, you just show up and they give you the lines and you read the thing, and and they tell you about it as you go. So in this instance, there was an additional document that was like required, open this. And so I open it, and it's talking about how I need to record myself, and that I need to download an app onto my iPhone, and I need to, input all this data into the iPhone, and then I need to do a facial feature recognition mapping of my face, name that file, send it off, and then during the session, I'm supposed to record myself through the entire session, right? Why I don't have the means to do that. Like I just have a booth, it's a voiceover booth. It's not set up. I mean, here I have a camera and everything, but that's not in my booth, right? And I can't move it to my booth. I mean, it's just crazy. So anyway, so I sent a note, and I'll tell you, here's the process, right? Like I was irritated. I was irritated by it, right? I was like, I went back and I looked at the audition, and I'm like, there's no mention of motion capture, performance capture, facial feature capture, and if ever there is motion capture or performance capture, I decline the audition. I'm not in LA where all that stuff happens, and I'm not equipped to be able to do anything like that. And I really, in the last couple of years, have been like, here are the parameters under which I want to work in games. I don't want to do motion capture. I don't want to be an on-camera voice actor. I want to be a voice actor. So anyway, so I'm a little irritated, right? Like, and then I think, oh, I'm just like getting on my little high horse here, But I was like, there's nothing in the audition that says motion capture, and I'm thinking about my likeness, and I don't want my likeness anywhere. Like I um, it and I know I conflate that with AI and all that, and I know it's different and all those things, but nonetheless, I was like, it's too much for me, right? So anyway, I sent my agent a text over the weekend apologizing for the weekend text. And on Monday she was like, I totally understand. Let me talk to them. So and I said, when she said that, I said, okay, let me try to see if I can figure this out. Let me try. And I'll get back to you as soon as I really know anything. And so for 2 hours yesterday, I tried everything. I thought to myself, Kay Bess, you tell people all the time, if you want to stay in this business, you have to keep up. You have to say yes. You have to say yes to new technology. You have to say yes to experiences that are unfamiliar to you. You have to say yes. So you have to do your best to say yes in this circumstance. So I tried. I got out every, you know, mic stand, every contraption, everything I could do to try to get, and there were specific requirements about the angle of my iPhone in this app while I'm recording, right? And I could not do it. I couldn't do it. And I know that probably sounds ridiculous, but my booth just isn't, there's nothing for me to attach anything to, you know. I used sort of bendable mic stand that I use for travel and also like right here for my mic and stuff. And that I couldn't get that to work. And I finally was like, I can only half-ass this. I can only half-ass it. And so I'm not going to do it. I have to say no. And so I sent a note to my agent and I'm like, okay, so I have tried every which way. And I can't give them what they want. And so if they want to keep me without that, that would be fantastic. However, if they need to recast, I totally understand. And I'm really sorry for not being able to do this, right? So she replied to me and said, okay, so I just spoke to the casting director, and she was totally surprised. She had no idea that any actors were going to be asked to film themselves, and get their motion capture, and and the casting director is apologetic, for not providing that information. And there's, she's not upset with you or anything like that. However, they do have to recast it, right? I'm not doing the job, right? And it's such an interesting story to me, right? I know it's my own story, but like there are so many things about it that are lessons for me, right? So, and this ties into like, how did 2023 go and what are you going to do for 2024? So for 2024, I'm revamping my booth. Um, and I'm going to, put a monitor on the wall and get a MacBook Mini and be able to set up a mic stand such that I can put my camera on it. And if somebody needs motion capture from me again, facial feature recognition, I'll be able to do it. And I feel like that's my lesson. Like if I don't, I will not stay true to the value and the wisdom of saying yes when something new comes along, right? I want to keep working. As cranky as I am about it, like I want to keep working. So in this instance, I couldn't do the job. I couldn't do it in the moment, right? But I can make myself better for the future, right? And that for me is kind of what I am hoping for 2024, right? Like take a look at the things that didn't go well in 2023. What can I learn from them? And how can I improve, excuse me, in 2024? How can I make it better? And you know what? It may be 3, 4 years before anybody ever asks me to do facial recognition again. I mean, that was a piece of my question to my agent. Like, is this customary? Like, am I, because I've never done it before. Um, uh, you know, and I'm like, so if I'm just being nudgy, then I better get it together, you know. But if this is like, no, no, this is unusual, and it was a little bit of both, right? She said, you know, it's becoming more and more um, the norm to do motion capture. She goes, but not motion capture at home. She goes, that is a big ask, and not many people are able to do that. So she's like, no fault to you, you know? So it's both and, right? So, um, you know, so I have stuff to do in 2024 if I want to keep on working. And I have long learned that jobs come and they go, and sometimes you get replaced, and sometimes you do the replacing. You know, one of my best roles ever in video game stuff was, I think, my second role, Anna in Rise of the Tomb Raider, and I replaced someone last minute. Last minute. Like I did the entirety of the role inside of 2 weeks, and then the game was released. If any of you have done games or know anything about it, it's usually like a couple years before you know, before your work comes to light. And in this case, it was like 2 weeks. So again, it's like it's customary to be on both ends of that scenario, to be replaced and to replace. You know, it happens. So um, so I wanted to share that with you for the, you know, it's like it's because it's real, you know. Things will come up. I mean, I had no idea that this was going to come up and that it was going to land the way that it did. And it was a really good reminder to me of like, stay prepared. You know, keep asking questions, keep looking ahead to what's out there and what's, I mean, I sort of sometimes I roll my eyes while I'm being honest here. Sometimes I roll my eyes at all the tech heads in voiceover land. I'm like, oh, just get a good mic, pad your room, you know, get a MacBook and call it good, you know. And I kind of, you know, I roll my eyes at everybody with all their equipment and their this and like all the stuff. They run this through that, and then in a situation like this, I go, well, they're probably a lot more prepared for all the things than I am, you know. So it was just a really good reminder to me, and I hope a reminder, um, and um, and illuminating, you know, that it doesn't matter how long you've been at voiceover, like there's always something to learn, you know, and there's always some way to grow and get better and to come face to face with your own intransigence, you know. And I did that. Well, that's what happened this weekend. I came face to face with my own intransigence, and it was like, no, okay, Bess, you have to stop that. You have to stop that. Don't, you know, you've had a long career and you want it to keep going for 5 more years. So don't lose sight of the finish line now, you know. So um this brings me to, because I again, I always keep you too long. Um this brings me to trust and be brave, right? And this group and what the snap I'm doing, you know, with all of that. And asking myself, what is this group about? And what what can I provide? And what do you need from me? And I ask that sincerely, and I would love to know what you need from me, how I can help you, what questions you still have, the things that still nag at you, the places that you get stuck, and the hurdles that you feel like you can't surmount. And so I really do want to know. And you can tell me in in a message via Facebook. You can email me if you got my email address. Like however you find me, you can post, um, you know, in the group even, which is even better, right? Which leads me to this. So along with in a John F. Kennedy sort of way, you know, ask not what your coach can do for you, but what you can do for your coaching group. How are you willing to participate in this? I have this vision, you know, of I have this vision of this group being really active with each other, and I could get a little verklempt about it. I think, I'm gonna move Facebook Lives to once a month. I'm gonna start providing some other things, and a piece of that is I want to go back to once a week providing a space where you can name your wins, your accomplishments for the week. It doesn't have to be in voiceover, it can be anything. It could be, if you have kids, it can be like, oh my God, all of us just slept 8 hours for the first time in 3 months. Like, it's a gnarly win, because being able to sleep affects how you work and all the things, right? And so, another thing that I want to do is I have always wanted to provide a space where we have we have experienced people in this group, and we have new people in this group who have begun their careers, right? But still are trying to piece things together. And I really long for a space where people are free to ask questions, questions that they think might be silly, or I should know by now, or I think I've heard this before but I can't remember. And any question like that, and everybody in the group who can answer, answers, replies, shares their particular wisdom and experience, right? And it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if you've been at this for 3 years and you're like, I haven't been at it very long, but I have an answer to that. It doesn't take somebody who's been in this business for 40 years to have the answer. We all have our answers depending upon where we are on the path, right? So I'm really, that's what I hope for. And there should never be any fear or intimidation, or trepidation about posting any questions of at any level, right? And no responses, which I can't imagine from any of you, but right, like no responses like, "Oh my God, don't you know that by now?" Or that's a stupid way to set up your booth. Like none of that, right? I just again, I can't imagine it from you all. But I just want to say that out loud, right? Because I really do want to. I want this to be of service. And I don't have all the answers. There's so many of you in this group who know so much more about the way that you in particular do your voiceover business that I don't know anything about, right? And so I come from a different way of doing voiceover, which is very, very quickly becoming obsolete. And so I can only share what I know, but you guys all know things I don't know. And so that's my hope. That's what I intend to implement in after the first of the year. And so I am looking to you to participate and imbue this group with rich, full, well-rounded knowledge. And I want to know what questions you want me to address for Facebook Lives. And if there's just any other way, any other thing that you go, it would be really helpful if you did this. I do notice on the Monday questions, which are great, and they're posted by Josie, Josie Ratton, who's my assistant. And I love when you guys participate in those, like what thing are you, what was Mondays? It was like, what thing are you really into that nobody's ever heard of? And I love the participation in all of that because it again, it's connection, right? And so there will be more things like that. And I really, really hope that, I don't know what I'm going to call it yet. I don't know if it's going to be Fabulous Fridays or what have you, but I really hope that you will participate in the sharing of your wins. And then I hope in the other question asking that you will really participate in sharing your frustrations, and the things that about which you need help, because that's ultimately why we're here. So I think that's it. I um, I have great faith in 2024. I'm going to say that. And I got no idea what's to come. Um, but I do know that um, with the right, what's the word I want? With the right mindset, I don't really like that word, but you know what I mean. Like with the right perspective, like there will be so much to learn and so many ways in which to grow and ways in which we can be of service to each other. And um, two things I want to say before we go. I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson, and I was a fan of his long before he became some controversial figure. And one of the things that I love about him is his ideas about changing the world. You know, like I think we've come to this place where we think, boy, you know, you need to be an activist to change the world, and it needs to be a big national or global issue, and it becomes quite overwhelming because you know there's so much about which the world could use a shift, you know, and then we start to feel helpless, and then we can go into some hopelessness, which pervades our lives, right? And the thing that he says about that is, you know, you can't change the world, but you can change yourself. It's the only person, the only living entity over which we have control. And I believe that. And um, and so just want to be of encouragement for you to um, continually seek to be the best you that you can be. And that includes, you know, caring for your neighbor, right? Kindness in your daily life, goodness in your daily life, and how you interact with the people who come across your path. And I think that each of us, if we do that, the world really will be different. And so I want to leave you with that. And I also want to say one more thing, and I'm probably going to get a little verklempt here. But if you don't know, a dear fellow in our voiceover community passed away last week, Maggie Peisner, and she died of complications, long complications due to long COVID, and she had been in and out of the hospital for a long time. And I just can't tell you how much I loved her, and it makes me really sad that that she died, and she. I think I shared with you like the story of her demo making with Tina Morosco, and I have just played her demo for so many people because I thought it's so brilliant, you know, and and it was truly a reflection of who she is and how talented she was, and and she set such an example for me because that woman lived until she died, right? She was always after something new. She was sparkly and engaging and funny just a gem of a person. And so I just want to dedicate all this to Maggie Peisner and and hope to live as vivaciously as she did. What a good human, and may her memory be a blessing. Um, So I adore you all, and I thank you so much for being here. And find me where you can. I'm at your service. Dan, Susan, Brad. Hello, Brad. Mike. Let's see. Yeah, Genevieve. Thank you guys so much for being here. And again, find me where you can. Have a beautiful holiday season, and we will see each other in 2024. All right, y'all. Mwah.